Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 44, Chapter 44, entitled Endearing Death. Izuku watched helplessly as the sword raised up, glinting as it reflected the small amounts of light that came from the setting sun and the street lamp just outside the alleyway. A blur of movement in the blade came down faster than his eye could see. The slightest whoosh followed the movement as it struck down. A blast of cold air and a pitter-patter of what felt like raindrops landed on his face. Eyes wide in horror, he saw a couple speckles of red on the ground. Blood. Eyes looking up, he stared in shock to see a wall of ice in front of Ida. To the side of the ice stood Todoroki, expression closed off as his mismatched eyes looked over at him. Midoriya, learn to write more specific directions. I was almost too late. A loud, pain-filled cry interrupted the two, and Izuku looked at the wall Ida was behind. He noticed Todoroki's grimace. I'm sorry, Ida. I was too late to prevent you from getting injured. I'm sorry, as if those words were enough to cover for the hurt Ida had gone through. Still, Ida had put them in this position in the first place, but those words were just so empty, meaningless. Why do people say I'm sorry for everything? Stain huffed. So many interruptions. Sending a message that is pointless isn't your style, his classmate said. I realized you were in trouble. Don't worry, in a couple of minutes the pros will be here. With that, ice was sent out and Izuku and Native were thrown behind where Todoroki stood. I won't let him kill either of you. Don't let him draw your blood. He paralyzes by ingesting your blood. Explains all the blades, so I've just got to keep my distance. Movement blurred and Todoroki was to the side, a cut on his cheek, but he managed to dodge and put up a wall of ice to give them a moment's respite. Both of you, just stop it. I've inherited my brother's name. I have to do this. He's mine too. Inherited his name? That's weird, Todoroki interrupted. 'Cause the Ingenium I know of never made faces like that. Guess your family's also got a dark side to it. Also? What did Todoroki mean? He had no time to think of that, though, as he desperately kept trying to move and paused briefly when he felt his finger twitch in response. Was the paralysis wearing off? Use your fire to stop Stain from getting close, Izuku called out, voice louder than he had meant, as the wall of ice was cut down. He watched in horror, unable to move, as Todoroki was stabbed in the arm by multiple blades and soon was paralyzed, the boy having chosen to try and block Stain with more ice instead of using his fire. The hero killer glared at them. Now it is time for me to finish what I set out to do tonight. With that he moved, walking over to Native, who was still slumped against the wall. A shing, whoosh, and a thud was the only noise that followed as Native's head rolled towards them. Izuku gagged as his wide eyes stared at the head that rolled towards them. Dead. The pro was dead. Izuku knew he would have to one day face death in his career as a hero, but he didn't expect to see it so soon, so up close and personal. Everything seemed to slow down as the hero killer turned to Ida. He saw each footstep as if in slow motion. Izuku forced himself to move, the last trace of the paralysis wearing off. He needed to block the blade, but without getting injured. His body trembled from the exertion of his training the past few days, from pushing his body past its limits, but he needed to defend his classmates. He needed a barrier. Green lightning crackled along his skin. Like a bolt of lightning, he remembered that strange dream, the way the person had created a barrier of lightning in their hands. With desperation and a faint hope, he clapped his hands together, rubbing them for a second as he threw himself in front of the blade, bringing his hands apart. Green lightning spread out between his hands, creating a small square barrier, the top left of it connected to his left hand and the bottom right corner connected to his right hand. The blade flashed down, landing against the barrier and stopping as if it hit something solid. Red eyes widened in surprise as the lightning conducted along the blade, zapping him and causing the hero killer to drop the blade. Izuku closed his hands together, ending the barrier as red eyes narrowed at him, the gaze of a predator. Midoriya, you can move, Todoroki exclaimed. Yes, it seems his quirk wore off quicker for me. There are a few possibilities. Number of people, how much blood type. I'm A, Ida bit out between gritted teeth. O, Todoroki answered from the ground. I'm O as well. Ah, blood type. That's right. Not that knowing would do much good, considering if they got hit they would be paralyzed and killed. The hero killer picked a new blade. This one had a rubber handle, something that would stop the electricity from hitting him, but Izuku knew he could at least block the hits. A blur of movement, and Izuku created a new barrier, once more catching the blade for a moment before the hero pulled it away. Izuku needed to be able to attack the hero killer. As he held the barrier open, he could almost feel himself being drained, like a battery losing its charge. He wasn't getting tired, but he realized that he must have some sort of stockpile of electricity he was using up, so he closed his hands to preserve the electricity. Jumping wall to wall, he went up to distract Stain as he pulled out his gun, shooting bullets down as the hero killer jumped up towards him, sword raised up. Izuku could see the bullets missing, could see the blade coming closer even as he emptied the magazine. As the blade came bearing down on him, Izuku noticed there was one knockout bullet in the hero killer's arm, but he knew it would still be a few minutes before the drug took effect. A large flash of silver, and Stain was being launched into the opposite wall of the alleyway, Ida landing down. "This has nothing to do with either of you, so I'm sorry. That's why I swear I won't let you two lose any more blood here," Ida cried out, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the blood that covered the right side of his head. Now it was noticeable where the blood had come from. Ida's right ear was gone. Stain scoffed. "It's no use pretending. A person's true nature is not so easily changed. You're a fake, who prioritizes his own selfish desires, a cancer on this society warped by heroes. Someone needs to correct the system." "Ida, don't even think of listening to his so-called reasoning," Todoroki called out from the ground. "No, he's right. I have no right to call myself a hero. Still, I won't let him break me," Ida declared, blood dripping down the left side of his armor, from where he was stabbed by Stain. "Because if I break, then Ingenium really is dead. You're hopeless." Izuku watched as Todoroki shifted a finger, the movement starting to return to his classmate. Stain raced forward towards Ida, who also changed stance, obviously getting ready to kick the hero killer. Izuku launched himself forward towards the fight, noticing out of the corner of his eye where Todoroki managed to move his hand and ice launched towards the hero killer. Ida kicked him from the side, launching the hero towards Izuku, who punched him in the back, sending him towards the wave of ice, allowing Todoroki to completely freeze the hero killer in place. Izuku winced, biting his lip hard to keep from crying out as he felt his arm crack, having accidentally used too much power on the last punch. A collective breath was released from the three students as they realized that Stain was temporarily knocked out. "We need to find rope or something and disarm him. I can't keep him in ice for long." The three looked around and found some rope, tying the villain up and removing all the weapons they could find. As they exited the alleyway, Gran Torino popped around the corner. "Huh? Why are you here?" his mentor cried out, coming over and whacking him on the head. "Gran Torino!" Izuku called out in shock. Almost instantly, Ida and Todoroki were standing in front of him, looking at Gran Torino through narrowed eyes. "I told you to stay in your seat," the hero continued to scold, easily using his quirk to get around the two. I'm sorry," Izuku said, bowing a bit in shame. The words didn't mean anything, yet they were the appropriate words to say here. Izuku wasn't sorry, but he knew his mentor expected the apology. "Well, I don't know what happened here, but glad to see you're still alive, brat." "Who are you?" Todoroki questioned, a slight note of hostility in his voice that had Izuku shifting away with a nervous swallow. "Gran Torino, this brat's mentor for this week." There was no time for further talk as a bunch of heroes started showing up, all of them talking over each other, calling for an ambulance, and noticing the hero killer was tied up. Ida bowed. "Both of you, you were wounded because of me. I am terribly sorry. I was blind. I lost sight of everything." I'm sorry as well. I should have realized you were upset." Izuku bit his lip. Ida had been by his side this entire school year, supporting him and never demanding Izuku do something he was uncomfortable with. I should have noticed, because we're friends." Maybe he couldn't trust Ida yet, but Izuku could say they were friends. Blue eyes widened, and Ida gave a wobbly grin. "We both could have done better." "Get it together. You're the class president," Todoroki said. Ida bowed. "Yes." Gran Torino's head snapped up. "Get down," he yelled. "A villain? How could Endeavor let it go?" A second later, Izuku found himself being lifted into the air, the thumping of wings beating against the air, filling his ears as wind rushed past him. "What?" "Midoriya!" Various voices called out. Then he could feel a change in the air around him, and heard a voice speaking out. "Both this sham-filled society and the criminals who wield their power in the name of petty mischief are targets of my purge, An arm was wrapped around his stomach, and they were landing on the ground, and Izuku looked up with wide eyes at the hero killer. All for the sake of a better society. Izuku was dropped onto the ground, but was unable to get up as the hero killer kept a hand on his back, suppressing him from getting up. Unable to see what was going on, he did hear the hero killer speak up, a whisper of a name. Endeavor. Todoroki, wait! The pressure on his back was released, and Izuku struggled to get up to a sitting position. His eyes widened as he saw the hero killer's expression. You fake. The hero killer was staring at Endeavor with angry red eyes, something in his expression freezing Izuku. But, he could feel Stain's killer intent, and he couldn't move past it. He could only stay still in the hopes that the predator didn't notice him and his blood frenzy. If I don't fix it, if someone isn't stained with blood, if I don't reclaim my hero status. But, the hero killer took a step forward. Come, just try me, you fakes. The only one allowed to kill me is All Might, a true hero. But, Stain took another step forward, and everyone looked at him frozen, Endeavor speaking up next. He's out cold. The flame hero stepped forward, blue eyes widening a bit. Thanks for stopping me, old man. I didn't know the hero killer had a child hostage. Yeah, maybe next time check to see why we weren't taking action, Gran retorted. Endeavor scoffed and turned toward the other heroes. Hey, someone make sure an ambulance is on the way, and get the police over here too. We gotta make sure Stain stays secure. If he wakes up, he might try to attack or flee. The other heroes came out of their daze, everything becoming a blur of action as the adrenaline started to wear off. Boarding into the ambulance, he was laid down, and a moment later, he was unconscious. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 44 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 45 will be up next. Personally, I think it's kind of cool that the author wrote it in that Ida sustained a different type of injury from this attack from Stain, losing his ear. I think that's kind of interesting. And I also liked how Izuku was able to manipulate One For All to be able to actually do a barrier with lightning, kind of a different play on the One For All vestiges and things like that. So I'm eager to hear your thoughts and reactions to everything so far. And as always, thank you so much for listening.